From deserts where empires rose to fields where nations burned, and warriors of faith stood unshaken, the echoes of battle still whisper, "Old war." The battlefield was silent at dawn, shrouded in smoke and mist. In the forgotten corners of history, where maps fade and names are erased, there existed a war that time itself chose to forget, but was not marked by treaties or victories, but by the cries of those who vanished into the fog of despair. Elias' heart had grown up in a small, quiet town where mornings smelled of fresh bread and evenings carried the laughter of children playing. In the fields, he had never imagined that one day the scent of smoke and the cries of the wounded would replace the warmth of home, leaving behind his mother and younger sister. He carried nothing but a small pocket Bible, a photograph of his family, and a heart full of hope. Just make it through today. One day at a time, he whispered as he trudged toward the horizon, unaware of the horrors awaiting him. The first days at the front were a harsh awakening. The trenches were alive with mud and despair. Rain fell in cold, relentless sheets, washing over shattered helmets and the bodies of soldiers who had fallen in the previous night. Screams echoed through the narrow passages as Elias learned that survival was not about courage, but about endurance. In those moments, names lost meaning, faces blended into a fog of fear. Death became a constant companion, whispering at the back of every mind. Letters from home were a fragile tether to the world they had left behind. Every line of ink carried the warmth of hearth and family, a reminder that life still existed beyond the mud and barbed wire. One letter read, "Elias, we pray every night for your safety. Remember to breathe, to hold on. We wait for the day you return." Yet the weight of these words was heavier than any rifle. Each letter reminded him of what was at stake and what might already be lost. Weeks turned into months, and the war ground itself became a living nightmare. Artillery shells tore through the earth with a deafening roar, flinging mud and metal into the air. Commanders disappeared in the chaos. Strategies collapsed, and soldiers were forced to rely on their wits and each other. Elias formed bonds with comrades who, like him, had only known innocence before the gunfire began. There was Thomas, a wiry sharpshooter with a laugh that could cut through the tension, and Samuel, a gentle giant who tended to the wounded with hands that shook even under fire. Amidst these friends, Elias discovered the raw humanity that war could not crush. He would share the last piece of bread with a starving boy who sneaked behind the lines, or whisper prayers for the wounded as he carried them to safer ground. "Hold on. You'll see your family again?" "Hold on," he would tell them, though he knew not all would survive the night. Then came the massacre, a night that would etch itself into Elias' mind forever. Hundreds of soldiers trapped in a valley were cut down in a storm of gunfire and fire. The cries of men, mixed with the roar of cannons, created a symphony of despair. Elias survived, crawling through mud and blood, clutching the limp body of a friend, listening to the silence that followed the screams. Fate had spared him, but the faces of the dead would never leave him. Survival did not bring peace. Returning soldiers were broken, not just physically, but mentally. Elias' nights were haunted by visions of comrades lost, friends calling out his name amidst explosions and fire. Sleep was a stranger. Memories became chains. He would stare at broken mirrors, whispering, I can't forget, I can't." Even the smallest sounds could trigger the horrors he had witnessed. A dropped can, the crack of a branch, a sudden gust of wind. Yet amidst this darkness, flickers of courage and humanity persisted, acts of kindness, sharing tea in a trench, covering a comrade in a blanket. A whispered word of hope became anchors in a world otherwise consumed by despair. Elias remembered the warmth in Thomas's eyes as he handed him a stolen loaf of bread, or the quiet bravery of Samuel carrying wounded soldiers across open fire. These moments, brief as they were, defined the soul of the war that no history book would record. Letters became more than messages. They became confessions. Soldiers wrote not just to comfort loved ones, but to confess fears they could not voice aloud. Elias wrote of his doubts, of the friends he could not save, of the dreams that died with each passing day. Every letter became a testament, a fragile record of life amidst death. Battles came and went, each more devastating than the last. Strategies failed, troops were scattered, and the earth itself seemed to turn against them. Elias faced moments when all hope seemed lost, when food ran out, when water was contaminated, when the rain flooded the trenches, turning them into rivers of mud and despair. Yet, through every hardship, he found a reason to press forward, a reason to honor the fallen. The turning point came not with victory, but with endurance. Elias' unit, though battered and diminished, began to adapt. They learned to anticipate enemy movements, to survive the bombardments, and to hold their ground when all seemed lost. Yet even these small victories were shadowed by loss. Every step forward carried the weight of the dead, every decision a reminder of mortality. But as the months dragged on, the war took more than lives. It took innocence. The soldiers became shadows of their former selves, hardened by fire, shaped by tragedy. Elias' letters home were now filled with warnings, tales of horror carefully masked with hope. We fight not for glory, but for survival. Remember us if you can, he wrote, knowing that the world outside would never truly understand. The end of the war arrived quietly, not with fanfare, but with emptiness. Survivors returned home, carrying the echoes of those who had not. Elias walked through his hometown, greeted by curious eyes, friends who had known him as a boy. The smell of fresh bread and the laughter of children returned. Yet he could not shake the visions of mud, blood, and screams. He paused, staring at the horizon, haunted but alive. War does not simply take lives, it steals time, memory, and the essence of those who endure it. Yet in the silence that follows, the echoes remain. They remind us that even when history forgets, the human heart never will. We remember, Elias whispered, placing a worn helmet atop a makeshift cross. We honor those who lived and those who never returned.